Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we are really strapping in to look at the just intense pressure cooker environment facing America's truck drivers.
Hmm.
And I mean, this is so much more than just, gas prices going up and down. We're talking about a collision of physical risks, these huge regulatory burdens, and just, well, a ton of economic uncertainty.
It really is an unprecedented situation. It's like all this instability is happening at once. When you dig into the sources, you see the industry is it's grappling with so much.
Like what?
Well, you've got major federal actions on labor law, these incredibly strict new environmental rules, and then this really deep crisis around driver health. It all adds up.
It sounds like it impacts everyone, from the big carriers all the way down to the owner-operator.
Exactly. And so our mission today is to kind of synthesize these pressures and, I think this is the critical part, explore this idea as a proactive financial shield that's starting to emerge, a way for drivers to get some control back.
That idea of control, that's exactly it. It's so vital right now. I was thinking about how resources in this space have changed. You look at a site like lifeistrucker.com back in 2008, it was all about helping you get into trucking.
Right, that was the focus.
But now the whole commitment has shifted. It's about helping you get out of the industry. But, on your own terms, when you decide.
Which is a massive change in perspective.
It is. So we need to understand what's making that exit plan so necessary.
Yep.
Okay, let's unpack this. Let's start with the regulatory hand that is just squeezing the industry so tight right now.
Let's do it.
So this squeeze really starts with California's Assembly Bill 5, or AB5. We just saw this staggering enforcement action. An $868,000 penalty.
Yeah.
It hit 3 companies, 1 carrier and 2 shippers. I mean, that number alone should make you sit up and pay attention.
Oh, absolutely. But what's really fascinating, what's different here is that they targeted the shippers right alongside the carrier. That's an escalation.
What does that signal?
It signals that regulators aren't just looking at the fleet owner anymore. They're looking all the way up the supply chain. The government is basically saying, we think there's a pattern here.
A pattern of misclassification.
Exactly. A pattern where drivers are being classified as independent contractors when, for all intents and purposes, they're functioning as employees.
Okay, so explain that distinction for us, because that seems to be the core of this whole AB5 trap.
Well, an independent contractor is supposed to be, their own boss, running their own business. They set their schedule, control their routes. They have real economic independence.
But that's not what's happening.
In many cases, no. You have drivers under contract, but the terms say you have to take these routes, you have to check in at these times, you can't haul for anyone else. That level of control makes you an employee in the eyes of the law.
And if the state proves that, then what?
Then it triggers this cascade of back payments. We're talking payroll taxes, workers' comp, benefits. That's why that penalty was so massive.
Yeah.
It just throws the entire business model into question.
So, okay, if AB5 doesn't get you on the labor side, the EPA is coming for you on the environmental side.
Mm-hmm.
The American Trucking Associations, the ATA, they were really pushing the EPA to delay this new heavy-duty NO emissions rule. They wanted it pushed to 2031.
They were asking for almost a decade of breathing room,
Mm-hmm.
and they needed it because the tech to comply, it's not cheap and it's not simple.
And the EPA said?
The EPA said no. The 2027 deadline stands.
Wow.
Yeah. So if you connect the dots, this NO rule, it demands huge leaps in the technology, specifically in the exhaust scrubbing systems. These things are complex, they're expensive, and getting them on every new truck by 2027 is a huge lift.
And that cost, I assume, just gets passed straight onto the buyer.
Yeah.
To the fleets, to the owner-operator.
Precisely. This forces everyone to budget for trucks that are going to be way more expensive. And it's not just the cost. There's a technology risk, too.
Like, what if the new engines have problems?
Exactly. What if the 2027 compliant engines have, unexpected reliability issues? That risk gets absorbed by the market. It's a lot of uncertainty.
Okay, now let's shift to the labor force itself. There's this proposed CDL crackdown bill. It's aimed at preventing undocumented immigrants from getting commercial driver's licenses.
This one is, it's really tricky. It highlights this deep tension in the industry.
How so?
On one hand, you have to have enforcement. Carriers that exploit undocumented labor need to face fines. But on the other hand, the industry is already facing a massive, massive labor shortage.
Right.
So critics are worried that even with good intentions, tightening the CDL pipeline could shrink an already tiny pool of available drivers.
Yeah.
It's this clash between enforcement and the immediate practical need for drivers.
Okay, so that's the external pressure. Let's turn inward now to the people actually behind the wheel. And this part, frankly, is deeply concerning. We have to talk about the trucker longevity crisis.
This is maybe the most important part of the conversation.
The statistic is it's grim. The average life expectancy of a U.S. truck driver is just 61 years old.
61.
That is 17 years less than the general population.
17. That stat should be a siren for the entire country, not just the industry.
Right.
And it's not just one thing. It's a lifestyle that is almost engineered for a premature decline.
It's the sedentary part, right? Just sitting for hours and hours.
It's sitting for 10, 11, sometimes more hours a day. And then that is compounded by what people call the truck stop diet.
Fast food, energy drinks.
All of it. Nutrient poor, high sodium. And then you layer on the mental side. Rampant, often untreated sleep disorders like sleep apnea. The DOT is very concerned about that.
And the isolation, the stress, I can't imagine.
It's immense. The isolation, the burnout from being away from family, from dealing with constant delays, it all systematically undermines a person's health. It makes a long, healthy retirement statistically, well, very challenging.
So given that really grim reality, our sources were pointing to some potential relief from technology. Digital health tools are starting to emerge.
Yeah. And look, technology isn't going to build a gym at every truck stop, but it can help mitigate some of these really big risks.
Like telemedicine.
Telemedicine is a great example. A driver can have a quick consultation right from their cab instead of waiting weeks to see a doctor at home. Wearable tech, too. Smartwatches can monitor your heart, your sleep quality, and flag things like sleep apnea early on.
There was a quote from a driver in Texas. He said something like, "If I got to wear a smartwatch and talk to a doc on my phone to avoid that fate, so be it."
Exactly. It shows a real willingness to adopt these things if it means they can protect their future.
Okay, so moving from the driver's health to the truck's health, there's another huge vulnerability, manufacturing quality. We saw that Daimler Truck North America recall, the DTNA recall.
Right, for the Freightliner models.
Yes, affecting hundreds of vocational trucks.
And this was a really serious one, a major safety hazard. And it came from a simple error on the assembly line. The axle clamp fasteners weren't torqued properly.
Which means what?
It means a critical part of the axle assembly is loose. The whole axle could shift while you're driving. You'd lose control instantly. It's a recipe for a catastrophic crash.
And the driver has zero control over that.
Zero. That's the key point.
Right.
The driver just has to trust the manufacturing was done right, but they bear all the physical risk when it's not. They're on the receiving end of that negligence.
And if it's not the equipment failing, it might be the rules forcing you to drive too long. The fatigue debate is flaring up again.
Yes, with the new FMCSA pilot program, the one that lets carriers pause the on-duty clock during delays.
Which would extend the workday beyond that 14-hour limit.
Right. Carriers say it's about flexibility. You know, if you're stuck waiting for 6 hours to get loaded, you can pause, rest, and then finish your drive.
But the safety groups are not having it.
Not at all. They are strongly opposed. Their argument, and they have the data to back it up, is that every time flexibility has been injected into the hours of service rules, crash rates go up.
So it just encourages drivers to push past their limit.
Let's put pressure on them, yeah.
Yeah.
It blurs that line between being efficient and being dangerously exhausted.
Okay, so we've established this pattern. Physical health is deteriorating, the legal liability is crushing, and the operational risks are just everywhere. It really feels like relying on just the freight rates and hoping your company stays stable is a very high-risk bet.
It is. It's becoming less and less secure. When you look at the AB5 enforcement, the EPA deadlines, the crazy swings in freight rates, just depending on your CDL for your income is fragile.
Which brings us to this core idea from our sources, this solution. The idea of creating a financial shield to protect yourself from all these shocks.
A shield that, softens the blow if freight rates tank, or if you get sidelined by a recall, or if your company just goes under because of all this pressure. We're talking about building income autonomy.
So making money that isn't tied to the wheels turning.
Exactly. And the proposed solution is really focused on using modern digital tools, specifically AI, to generate extra streams of income.
And what makes that a good fit for the trucking lifestyle?
It's the flexibility. AI tools can let you start ventures with very low costs, and you can manage them during your downtime, your mandatory off-duty hours. It directly addresses the time constraints of the job.
That is key, isn't it? Truckers spend so many hours just waiting. At the dock, during restarts, just sitting in the cab.
And if you can repurpose that time to build an actual asset for yourself, well, that's where the power shifts. The whole goal is to create recurring, month after month online income.
So you can actually retire when you want to, not when the industry forces you to.
Right. It protects you from the biggest vulnerability in this industry, which is that your income is directly tied to your physical effort. If you can generate income digitally, it insulates you from a health crisis, from market shocks, from a huge regulatory fine. It puts the control back in your hands.
And the source material is clear. This isn't just some generic make money online advice. There's training and tools built specifically for truckers, right?
Yeah, that's right. Showing them how to use AI and strategies that actually fit into the reality of life on the road. For drivers who are serious about building that safety net, there are resources. The sister site, retirefromtrucking.com, has guides and training on how to use these tools to plan for that self-directed retirement.
It seems like the basic insight here is that diversification is just the best defense against all this risk.
It is. The environment is just too high risk now. Whether it's the threat of a shorter life or a huge fine, relying only on the truck is too fragile. Financial independence is the antidote to all this instability.
So we've really covered the whole spectrum here. The environment for truckers, from your legal status with AB5 to the looming costs from the EPA to the fragility of your own health, it's just incredibly volatile.
Hmm.
This doesn't just suggest you need a backup plan. It kind of demands that you have a strategic exit plan.
I think the synthesis is crystal clear. The forces pushing against the security of a professional arriver are just mounting so fast, whether it's navigating AB5, dealing with an EPA deadline, or just trying to protect your health. Relying only on that CDL is no longer enough.
Not adequate at all.
No. The key takeaway has to be the urgency of gaining financial control, building those off-duty income streams to stabilize your own future.
And when you think about that average life expectancy being only 61 years old, this idea of creating recurring online income, it's not just about protecting your money from regulations or recalls. It's about making sure you live long enough to actually retire on your own terms and enjoy the life you worked so hard to build.
That's the bottom line.
We really encourage you to explore that possibility. Look into building that off-duty income using these modern AI-driven strategies over at offdutymoney.com.